Hello and welcome to the MilVet Podcast. Your podcast hosts are Brendan Aronson and Tim Shaw. We are military veterans, entrepreneurs, and investors. Most importantly, we strive to empower military service members, veterans, and their families. We believe that every veteran deserves a career that fires them up, a career in which you can learn, earn, and build a world-class network. On this podcast, we interview civilian and military veteran leaders who are incredible founders, writers, thinkers, and investors. Our primary goal is to inspire you to achieve great things. Let's dive into today's episode. We've got Tyler Johnson and Carlos Romero, who are joining us to tell us about a unique event for veterans, for VCs, for founders in Miami. Before we dive in, I'd like to invite you to subscribe, share the podcast with a friend. Tyler, Carlos, thank you guys for joining us today.
Brendan, thanks for having us. We're excited. I'm excited to be here. We're excited to share a little bit about what we've got going on in our partnership.
Thank you, Tyler.
Yeah, thanks for the invite.
Yeah, let's go. This is going to be a ton of fun. Tyler, Carlos, can you tell us a bit about yourself to kick things off? Tyler, let's start with you, and then we'll kick it over to Carlos just for quick background.
Yeah, no problem. I'll make it quick. I grew up a military brat, and then I spent the last 30 years in the tech world. I come from Dell for about 20 years, and then the last 10 years I've been in the startup scene as a founder, an operator, and an investor. And I live in Miami, and I've been here a couple of years, and it's a great community, and I love what I'm doing.
Nice. Again, Brandon, thank you so much for the invite. It's awesome to be here with you. So real quick, you're not outnumbered. I think in this case, Tyler is the one outnumbered because two Marines against the Army brat. Marine Corps vet, serial entrepreneur after that, went on to participate in about almost a dozen startups since, a few of them in the tech space. Involved with eMERGE, supporting eMERGE along the last 15 years, and been involved in the venture capital space most recently, and excited to be supporting eMERGE and on the veteran program side.
Awesome. Let's dive right in. Can you guys tell me a bit about eMERGE Americas? What is the event? Just a quick overview of the event itself that's going to happen in March. Tyler, maybe you can kick things off.
Yeah, absolutely. So eMERGE Americas has been around for about 10 years now. It's a B2B tech platform. It's got about 20,000 attendees, 4,600 organizations, 60 plus countries. It was founded by Manny Medina and Melissa Medina, daughter and father team. They owned a company here in Miami called Terramark, and they founded that company, then sold it, and they wanted to establish the tech ecosystem here in South Florida, and eMERGE was born. And eMERGE has grown over the last 10 years to have a number of different technology streams, people, and audience. So the audience is typically venture capital, family offices. You've got a lot of startups. There's a startup showcase that they have and a pitch competition. And it's a lot of fun. It's 2 days. Who doesn't want to come to Miami in April or March? It's good weather, great time. We have some beach events. We've got block parties. We've got all sorts of networking. So it's a fun time and a great networking, but you also get a lot of value out of it.
That's awesome. Carlos, anything to add on the event or anything that you've noticed about it in the past?
Well, like I said, I've been involved with eMERGE almost since its inception over the last 10 years plus. I tell everybody, it's my favorite conference in the US. It's so well put together, the decoration, the design, the networking specifically, it's amazing. Tyler said it's on the beat, literally your toes are on in the sand and you're shaking hands and kissing babies. So it's a great time. It's a great place to network.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I think a friend of the podcast, Charles Masters Rodriguez, put it on my radar and said that it was just one of his favorite events of the year. I'm sure that the Military Veteran Startup Conference is everyone's actual favorite event. I'm sure eMERGE is fantastic. Jokes aside, this is the big boy version. So this is 20,000 attendees as opposed to we normally have 50. So this is a really big event for the technology industry. Carlos, you've been to the event for the last decade. Can you tell us a little bit about how it's evolved since its inception back in 2014?
Yeah, on the programming side, it's evolved significantly. Most recently in the last year, led by Tyler, the introduction of the eGov Summit, which is focused on defense innovation, dual-use technologies, bringing government, bringing customers, bringing even international leaders, stakeholders to the table, talk about defense innovation. This year, we're introducing the veteran program, which expands a little bit on the veteran entrepreneurship side, Like I mentioned earlier, I've been supporting eMERGE for the last 8+ years, bringing veteran-led startups to exhibit at eMERGE. So this year, we're bringing even more veteran entrepreneurs to the expo floor. We're bringing more organizations to collaborate with, to offer organizations to collaborate, and also the veterans that are attending to walk away with tangible, actionable resources. Case in point, you and the military veteran with the program that I'm sure we're going to touch on a little bit later.
Yeah, we are going to collaborate. I'm pretty fired up about it. We're putting on a track that is focused on veteran hiring together. So it's going to be a 2 to 3 hour in-person workshop. We'll have a few different events, like panels. One is on hiring effectively. There's like a method to the madness. And I think a lot of early stage companies could really benefit from just having a simple framework. That's something that we do with our venture-backed clients or startup clients, is try and provide them with a framework that they can broadly apply to all of their hires. So how to hire effectively. And then even more important, probably for a lot of veterans in attendance, is how to get hired. How do we position ourselves for roles at these kinds of companies? We'll also have a headhunter Q&A. So we're bringing out some members of the MilVet team to help you steer clear of any kind of landmines, ambushes that might be awaiting you, either on your resume or in an interview. And then we'll be doing a resume and interview prep workshop. So thank you for flagging that. We're pretty fired up to be able to collaborate with you guys.
Yeah, Brendan, I'm excited too, man. This is going to be awesome. This is the first time that eMERGE has done something this significant with the veteran community, which is awesome. It's the first time that eMERGE has dedicated a track for defense and for dual use and for just this whole access point. And I'm so excited about what's happening, because last year was our launch at the first stage of it. This is our second year doing it, and third and fourth year are obviously going to be bigger, but I'm super excited. And the uniqueness about eMERGE is that it's got all pillars of society here. So we've got not only the venture arms, but we've got the private equity groups, we've got startup groups, we've got universities that are present here, and then we've got bigger companies and the private industry that are there. So the feedback that we get from a lot of the attendees in the past has been they have the access to all of these different entities, and it's different from other events that they go to. I personally have gone to a lot of tech events over the course of a 30-year period, and there's not many that have all of the pillars that are there. And I think this is a unique opportunity for us to allow opportunity for individuals that are a part of it. I'm excited, man.
Cool. I always find it really helpful too. I imagine as you hit critical mass, 20,000 people is a lot of people. And so having these different tracks, I imagine, is extremely helpful for being able to narrow in on, hey, these folks are swimming in the same swim lane as me. Can you tell me a little bit about the tracks for the event? Would love to hear just like broadly what tracks are planned. And then maybe we could double click a little bit on the eGov Summit specifically after that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can take that one. So this year we've got 3 main tracks. The first one is AI and quantum. The second one is healthcare. And the third one is defense and dual use. And so this is the first year that we're doing this broadened version of defense and dual use, where we have dedicated badges and dedicated discounts for military veterans, first responders, and for those that are serving the government in some way. And so it's unique, man. It's the first time that we've carved this out at this extent. As you can imagine, though, the technologies span across all of them. So you could look at the defense and the dual use side, and you can take the AI platforms that are there, and they span across healthcare, and they span across the other entities that are there in the private sector. It's a unique umbrella to have this. But the most important thing is it brings this community together, because we've got a lot of people that have served before. We have a lot of people that are involved in the defense industrial base. We have a lot of people that have touched it for a long period of time, and they have a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge. And so the intent here is to try to get those great people to be involved in every aspect that's here. And so we're just providing that platform to allow those people to either access it or do good.
That's awesome. Yeah. Can you tell me a bit about the tracks themselves? I guess what I'm mentally imagining is you've got a big expo area with a bunch of setups, vendors or startups, I'm sure that'll be there. And then I'm imagining that there are panels that are specific to those different tracks as well. Is that kind of the general format of it, Tyler?
It is. This year we have 2 days of programming in March. So the event is March 27th and 28th, 25 in Miami at Miami Beach Convention Center. We have 2 days of programming. So think 6 to 7 panels that we'll have that are spread out amongst the floor. And if you imagine a convention center, there's multiple stages that we have along with the main stage. We've got panels that are happening throughout both of those days, and they're at various topics. We also have a couple of keynotes that are going to happen, one for each day, and they're going to be themed around the military. So we'll have an active duty that will be on stage. I'm trying to get all 3 of the commands here in Florida on stage. I don't know if I can pull that one off, but I'm rooting for that one. And then we've got some retired people that work in the industry that cross over into the venture world and the private community, and they did a lot of service in the government prior, and they will be on the other stage that we have on the second day. At the same time, where you guys fit in, where MilVets fits in, we'll have some workshops that are going on throughout the days. So on the first day, you guys have a couple of hours. We also have another workshop that's going on around government contracting and just some transfer of knowledge around government contracting from the novice all the way up to people that have had significant success with contracting before. And then we have private events. We have private networking events that are geared towards either family offices or they're geared towards funding or fundraising. Then we have private events that are geared towards maybe startups that are looking for networking with money, or they're looking for revenue streams. A lot of these companies are looking for revenue streams, and how do you go find those revenue streams? And we'll have a bit of that. And then on the last day, the 28th, we actually have a private government lunch. And so it's about 150 people that'll be in that room, and they span from state, local, federal, to venture and family offices, to companies and organizations that kind of fit around that ecosystem. So the intent here is to offer some knowledge transfer, to offer some people some connecting points, and maybe that produces some opportunity for them. I'm all about bridging the opportunities for individuals and for organizations. And if we can do that, I think it'll be valuable for the attendees, it'll be valuable for the businesses, it'll be valuable for the community here locally, because part of this is just growing that economic activity that we have here, which is super important. So I'm excited about it, man. I'm excited about the programming that we have.
Me too. It sounds like a blast. I'm going to ask you guys in a couple minutes for like how folks can maximize their time at these in-person events. I feel like that's a question that I personally have. I know a lot of our listeners probably have that question. But before I do, I want to ask 2 additional questions. Carlos, first, I want to ask what you are most looking forward to about the event this year.
That's a loaded question, but I'll try to keep it brief. I think piggybacking off of Tyler, the key word that he used is bridging communities, collaborating. There's 2 in my research. I've been in the veteran entrepreneurship space for 10 plus years, and I've interviewed thousands of veteran entrepreneurs. The 2 topics that always come up, the 2 things that they always say it's a problem, is access to capital, number 1, and a scattered ecosystem, call it. There's resources, hundreds and thousands of different orgs doing a lot of times the same thing. So the one thing that I'm looking forward to as we put together this veteran program, it's giving the opportunity to bridge those gaps, bring those stakeholders to one event where a veteran that's attending and is looking for, how do I look for my next job, or how do I start a startup? How do I find a co-founder? It all can be done. It all can be found during those 2 days. That's basically what I'm most excited about, is bridging, is solving those 2 things.
Yeah, it makes sense. We hear it all the time from veteran founders too. Access to capital, it's always difficult, but I think it's especially difficult for veterans to raise capital. Yep. You're seeing more and more veteran venture capitalists. I know you guys are both involved with a couple funds in our ecosystem. And so I think some of that challenge is starting to correct itself. There's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of veteran entrepreneurs with need for access to capital. And then the scattered ecosystem point is a really good one. I do worry sometimes. There's 45,000 veteran serving nonprofits in the country, and there's a lot of duplication of effort. And so that is difficult, but events like this one really help to bring together the whole ecosystem. So that is awesome. It's a really valuable service. The second question that I wanted to ask you guys, from my understanding, there's a pitch competition element of the event as well, correct?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
That? Yeah, I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, we haven't announced it yet, so the details are not, because the details are not finalized. But yes, it's slated right now for January 22nd. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tyler. We're hoping to have 5 to 10 high-level, amazing tech-led, veteran-led startups to pitch at Miami for a chance to exhibit at eMERGE Americas 2025. And with a prize, again, that's one of the details that hasn't been finalized, with a cash prize and an opportunity to be at eMERGE.
That's awesome. What a great thing that you guys are providing for our community. Tyler, yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say this fits into the wider startup showcase that eMERGE has. So they've always had a startup showcase where they have pitch competition, and they have about 100 companies that are brought to the show in March, and they go through a couple of days of pitching, and they reduce that number down to the top 5, and the top 5 get on the main stage at the final day of the event. And this year, they're going to have access and funding of almost $500,000. It's a lot of money that goes up there. And so to include the veteran community in that, and startups that have been founded by veterans, I think is significant and pretty cool. And we have some allocated numbers that are in there, which is awesome. Last year, as Charles was on the main stage pitching, Charles Masters. So he won second place, and it was great. It was great to see a veteran up there. It was great to see a cool company. It was great to see the acknowledgement that was there. And this is a great platform to highlight the community and the work that everybody's done, but more importantly, the service that people have done. And I'm looking forward to put more on stage and giving them some access points, because I think they bring a lot of value to the table, man.
Absolutely. I think it's like one of my biggest goals. There's this people, I think in America, there's this schism or divide between those that have served and those that have not. And it's become wider since World War II. This is a problem that we all, I think, are aware of. But the perception that people have of veterans might be skewed by things that they've seen in the media over the last couple of decades of war. And I love events like this where we can showcase the talents that our community has and the incredible things that veterans are doing in the business world to help show folks another side of veterans and what we're capable of. The fact that Charles got up there and crushed the pitch competition is not surprising to me, because he's the man, but it really fills my cup up. It's awesome to see. That's super cool that you guys have this pitch competition and that you're specifically making space for veterans to participate in it. It sounds like some of the details.
I just want to shout out to Melissa Medina, who is the CEO, because she's the one that has allowed this to happen for us. We just had the ideas and brought those ideas forward and brought some cool people together. She created this allowed this to happen. And I just want to give a shout out to her.
That's awesome. Yeah, I look forward to meeting her. Probably not during the event, because that's always super hectic, but that's awesome.
Oh, she's amazing. She's always super accessible regardless. She's awesome. And you'll meet her for sure.
That's awesome. I want to ask you guys about the vision for the future of the event. It's grown since inception, 20,000 folks. That's a huge event. You've got multiple tracks. You've got founders, VCs, family offices, folks that are interested in working in startups, folks that are working in the tech space. What is the vision for the future of the event? Where do you guys see it evolving from here?
I'll take some of this. Carlos, I'm sure you have your opinion. Carlos has been at this for longer than me at attending the event. I've only been in Miami for 2 years. I moved from Austin and came here and noticed there was a gap and an opportunity to bring some people together. Wouldn't it be great if we could get double the attendees every couple of years for the event? And we do that by attracting not only the private capital that's out there, but also the communities that exist. And I think we're only touching a couple of the communities. We have a lot of local South Florida communities that have been a part of this for a while. We have some Florida communities that have been a part of this for a while, but the vision is to make this a more national type of event, and thus the inclusion of other organizations and states that or organizations that are in other states, or opportunities that may exist by companies and maybe some of the government agencies that are don't recognize South Florida or Florida and some of the talent that's here. And by bringing in all of those different communities, I think there's no reason why we can't double the attendee list. And by doubling this, that means there's value out of it. And you got to produce value. If people show up, they got to get something out of it. It's not just the toes in the sand. They've got to get some business activity out of it. They got to make some meaningful connections out of it. They have to learn something new and maybe transfer some knowledge. And so hopefully we can be that for a number of different communities. And I'm excited about this one. I'm excited about the dual use opportunity that we have here, because I think there's a lot of businesses that can come to Florida to bring their technology and their talent to solve some problems that we have here in Florida. And there's no reason why we can't attract a lot of that for the future. So I envision this thing to be big. I don't know if we're at the South by Southwest levels of 300,000+, but listen, we're 10 years in, and South by has been around for 30 years. We've got some milestones to hit off next couple of years. If we can keep doubling the counts, then I think we're on a good track.
Definitely. Carlos, what about you?
I couldn't agree more with Tyler, especially on the South by Southwest comment. I tell every partner and sponsor we've been talking to for the last couple of months, eMERGE is well positioned to take a good position in that gap left by Southwest. I love eMERGE. It's amazing, an event. Growth is definitely part of the vision. And I think now with this addition of the eGov side, the eGov Summit is going to allow for the overall brand, the overall event to grow exponentially over the next couple of years. What I would love to see happen as part of my vision and my contribution to eMERGE is to highlight veteran entrepreneurship, whether it's from historical to what's happening right now. So not a lot of people know, but one of the godfather of venture capital was a veteran. And there's so many companies that were started. Nike, for example, is highlighting what veteran entrepreneurship brings to the table, brings to the ecosystem. A lot of things that we use on a day-to-day basis were an original thought or brainchild of a veteran that the bigger population are not aware of. So highlighting that, bringing those future nights to eMERGE and iterate and create new innovation, that's what I would love to see happen in the next couple of years.
Super cool. Yeah, and the gap that Carlos is referring to, I believe that this year South by Southwest basically nixed its defense track, which is a huge bummer because it's guys, come on. It's absolutely critical that we have a secure country. That is table stakes for being able to do all this other stuff, all the psychedelic track and the healthcare track and all the other crazy stuff that South by Southwest does. We got to have this baseline of security. I want to transition the conversation.
I think it's a positive thing, though, Brendan. I think this is going to help out the nation a lot because that center of gravity was in Austin for a long time with South by. And South by is huge, and it attracts a lot of almost 3 weeks of programming that they do. Now that's busted up for the defense and the dual use stuff. It's going to spread to other ecosystems and other hubs that are across the nation. And so I think you're going to see a number of those regional areas flourish quite a bit more. And Miami and Florida is going to be one of those. And we're going to have that because we've got a lot of good things here. We've got access points. We've got universities. We've got talent. We've got the number 2 or number 3 veteran community in the nation in terms of numbers. There's a lot, man. There's a lot that Florida can bring to the table, and this is just another platform to take it there.
Yeah, and no state income tax, which is icing on the cake.
Even better, man. Imagine if Texas and Florida got together, what that would look like. Holy crap. You'd have a powerhouse on the world stage.
Yeah. I want to ask you guys, go to conferences. I go to in-person events. I go to conferences. We obviously host some of them. But I want to ask for advice for attending networking events and conferences. And I want to ask the question in sort of 2 parts. One is why should someone go, right? Why go to an in-person networking event, especially if you might not have a super, super clear objective or an obvious have to go sell this product to someone right now. That's okay. Obviously you need to go meet people in person. So the first part is why. And then the second part is how to maximize your in-person event attendance. Tyler, I guess I'd kick it over to you. You've been to a ton of events over the years. And then Carlos, First, why come to an in-person event? And then let's just answer that part, and then we'll transition into the how to maximize question.
Yeah, I'm a big in-person guy. I believe that you end up meeting people that you wouldn't otherwise meet if you show up. Maybe my dad taught me that. Just go show up, and that's 80% of the lift there. The other things that you get out of that, you never know who you might meet. The whole reason that this defense and dual use exists is because I showed up at some meetings and I showed up at some conferences and I met some people that I wouldn't have otherwise met. You couldn't have planned it, right? There's no way that you could plan meeting certain people and the opportunity that exists there. And so I'm a big proponent of showing up for events, and it's those ones that you didn't plan that you typically get the best outcome from, because those are the people and organizations that usually are looking for somebody else too. That's how I met Carlos. That's how I met everybody. I met everybody by showing up. And I think showing up is a big deal. And that's the why for me anyway. A lot of people have a tough time interacting with people maybe, or they're nervous or they don't want to do it. But man, I try to instill that even in my children. Just go show up and meet somebody. And lo and behold, every single time you're going to walk away with a card, a number, a contact, and you didn't have that before. And that's success in my view.
Carlos,
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more with Tyler. Some would call that old school, but it is what it is. The world turns in that way. It's you show up and things change. You have a virtual call is one thing, but when you're shaking a person's hand, you're reading their body language, they're reading yours, you're making eye contact. It's a different dynamic. It's just a different result. A good example of that is when I first started as a tech startup, my first time at eMERGE as a CEO of a tech startup. I didn't know eMERGE. I didn't know Melissa. But I realized at that moment that there was a hole, there was a gap in the South Florida ecosystem. There wasn't an ecosystem for veteran entrepreneurs to connect. So the only way to create that ecosystem was to go to the places that those individuals were. That's where I met the Ryan Michelettis of the world. I flew out to San Francisco, and it was an in-person meeting the people, meeting those stakeholders that allowed me to then go back to Miami and start building that ecosystem. That's when I met Melissa, and it was a personal interaction with Melissa. And I got to have the mayor of Miami and congressmen and CEOs of corporations to come to eMERGE in support of veteran entrepreneurship. So it definitely has to be in person.
Yeah, I want to add my own 2 cents here. It's my show. You guys are stuck with me, so I get to chime in if I want to. I want to add my own 2 cents. I'll say, like, when I think of an in-person event, I think of it as an opportunity for an investment it's a long-term investment. To Tyler's point, you're opening yourself up to allow serendipity and luck to work in your favor in a way that they otherwise wouldn't. There is tremendous value to being disciplined and focused on the 50-meter targets and the things that you need to do for the quarter or something like that, right? At the Milvet, we have goals for our quarter. We want to place a certain number of folks into jobs. We want to create new relationships with employers to bring more jobs to the community. That focus is really helpful for executing. But if you don't pick your head up and give yourself an opportunity for serendipity and luck to work in your favor, you're going to miss out on entire opportunities. I'll say for myself, I went to the first military veteran startup conference in San Francisco when I was on the tail end of a startup that was not doing well. And it was never on my radar to start a company that helped veterans find jobs, that hosted events. It was just not even something that was in the back of my mind. It was nowhere on my radar. And that in-person event, I reconnected with Tim in person. We started noodling on this concept, and it altered the course of my entire life in such a positive way. And I think of luck as some people tend to get lucky more frequently. And a lot of that is a product of the scalability of the things that you're working on, but also the number of people that know you exist. It's like a way to increase your surface area. And if you increase the network, it increases the surface area, and you're going to catch more luck because it's falling from the sky all the time. Like serendipitous, lucky things happen. And for folks that have a bigger network, those lucky things find them more frequently. I want to ask the second part of the question, which is how to maximize the value of an in-person event. Tyler, I'm one of those guys that you described. I get nervous before in-person events. Even though we host them, I feel like I'm fairly outgoing, especially in a small group like this. But when I walk into a room with 100 people, 200 people, 20,000 people, I get nervous. Any advice that you guys would have for folks that might be like me, or just how to think about maximizing the value of an in-person event?
Yeah, I think everybody gets nervous around people. Some people feed off of it. A lot of it is personality, but I think having some knowledge and experience and being able to share that knowledge and experience with the people that are there is important. I've been lucky enough to be in a lot of situations over a 30 to 35 year career. And so that allows me to have a lot of top talking points where I can interact with people. So that's helpful. So I think it's important to know what you're getting into before you go, right? You certainly should have some knowledge. If it's a tech conference on quantum computing, maybe you should have some knowledge around quantum computing, or at least read a couple of things or talk to a couple of people. And that way you can drum up some conversations. The other thing that's important is I usually do a lot of research ahead of the event to see who's attending, whether it's speakers or whether you have access to the Rolodex of people that are attending it. And then maybe try to pick out a couple of organizations that would be interesting to have a conversation with, and then go try to find them. It's interesting. So 2 years ago, I knew nothing about DARPA, and now I've had many conversations with DARPA about what they do and what their programs are and things like that. That's an example, but I sought those out. I looked for those people and I found those people, and I think it's important to do that to get value out of it. And if you're on a mission, whether it's a company and you're looking for revenue streams and you're trying to find a customer, that's one aspect. Whether you're a company, a startup looking for funding, there's venture firms out there, there's money that's out there. Go look and seek those people out. Or if you're an individual and you're looking for a job, go find out and see if those companies are there. And then don't be shy. They're just people. People are just people. That's all they are. And they all have experiences. And that's it. Man, you've got your experience. They have their experience. Bring them together, share it, and that's it, man. Elon Musk is a person. Go have a conversation with Elon. Send an email out. Go talk to the person that's in charge. More often than not, what I've found is that even if there's senior levels within organizations, typically people don't talk to them, or they don't talk real to them. And so if you go have a real conversation with somebody that's at a senior level, you're more likely to get a response out of them in some way, and you build from there and try it out. Do it as an experiment. And that's what I've leveraged a lot of these events is try things out, try different things and approaching different people. And after a while, you get your rhythm and you'll get into a groove and you'll enjoy it. You'll think it's fun.
100%. Carlos, what about for yourself?
So I laugh because I am the same way, like you just said, Brendan. I'm the same way. So there's a few things that help me alleviate that, and is research. Going off of Tyler's topic or suggestion, I do extensive research on the event. I used the eMERGE has an app where you can see the agenda, you can see who's speaking on what panel, and then I go to YouTube, and then I go to LinkedIn or see what I find on Google on the people that I want to make sure that I shake hands with at eMERGE. And I have an agenda broken down as to this is the panel's happening at this time. These are the speakers. This is the person I want to talk to. And this is the reason why. So that when I'm going into that opportunity to shake that person's hand and introduce myself, I know exactly why I'm there to do that. But Tyler's comment about they're just people, I shared this with Tyler when we first met, and it's always stuck in my head. So I always think about Tyler's, they're just people. So it has helped me alleviate some of that anxiety going into meeting new people. Yeah, they're just people. You're just gonna have a conversation. And then lastly is I tell myself, are they as scary as my senior drill instructor? And if the answer is no, then I'm good to go.
There you go. That's perfect. Good to have a good point of comparison. Yeah.
I got one thing to add, Brendan. I think it's important too. You can go to conferences, you can meet people, and you do meet a lot of people, and you can have good conversation. But I think the follow up and the follow through is super important. And that is one thing that I hold myself accountable to, is that if I meet somebody and I agreed or I committed to something or I told them I would call them or we agreed to whatever, that you follow up on it. And I'm not 100% all the time, but I make sure that I am following up with the people that I meet, because you never know where those opportunities go.
100%.
Yep.
The follow-up is so critical. Like a single touch point is not going to do anything for you, but staying in touch with someone, you'd be surprised at the opportunities that will come down your way from someone that you met serendipitously and randomly at an event 2 years ago, and now their startup is doing really well. They need a new person on their team, or there's just a million and one serendipitous things that come downstream of having good follow-up and staying in close touch with folks that you meet. I'm going to give some tips for myself. These are mostly tips for me, and so people can take them or leave them. I totally agree with everything that you guys said. I think a real pro move that I am not good at is taking the time to set up meetings ahead of time. If there's like folks that you know or that are coming that you want to connect with, find a time, sit down, have a coffee with them. This is directly downstream of a piece of advice that both of you guys gave, which is to look through the agenda. It seems really obvious. I'll be honest, sometimes I'm in such a rush that I haven't done as much research, and that's always a problem and a shame. This year, I'll be using AI to tell me like, hey, like which of these events should I go to? Like, how do I make my schedule? I think that could be really helpful application of it. The other things I would suggest, definitely know who you are targeting. So I think this builds on something that Tyler said, which is, hey, if you're a job seeker, you want to meet high growth companies that are hiring. So be a little bit targeted with who you're looking for. If you're a founder that needs to raise capital, like obviously you're trying to meet venture capitalists, or if you're a founder that needs to make some sales, know what your target profile looks like. If you are all of the above, you're not sure what you're doing in your career, go talk to as many people as humanly possible. The other piece, these are related points, but I would practice your elevator pitch ahead of time. Always remember to tailor and try and use your elevator pitch to be specific for the audience. So if you're a founder who's raising capital and you're talking to a VC, you're giving them the pitch for why they might be interested in investing. But if you're talking to someone that could be a good hire, you're adjusting that pitch slightly to be able to make it more relevant for the audience. And then the last and most important piece of advice is to walk up and say hi. I'm always like nervous to walk up, and because I don't know what I'm afraid of, that people are just be like, get out of here, go away, chase me off with a broom or something. It's never happened. It has literally never happened. Usually and I'm always like, what do I say when I first walk into this little circle of people? I always just walk up and say, hi, sorry to interrupt. Do you guys mind if I join you? And if you say it with a smile on your face, you're never going to get chased away with a broom. If you have trouble with that, or that seems like a lot, I always encourage people to think of it almost as if you're acting or you're playing like a part. And that way, if you get rejected, it's not you that's getting rejected, it's playing this part.
Okay.
Anyway, it's like, I stole that from Beyonce. She's the queen. I want to bring the conversation home. We've learned a great deal about the event. I want to ask one final question. We always ask this question last for the veterans that are listening, but Carlos, you've transitioned out of our beloved core. Would be curious to hear any advice that you might have for transitioning veterans who are listening to the show today.
Yeah, I guess piggybacking off of what I said earlier, being in the veteran entrepreneurship space for 10 plus years, having talked to many people, I realized that I wasn't alone in the problem that I was going through or experiencing at that time. And is that you lose a community, you lose a network, you lose a family, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to find one. And it's a matter of getting up and going and find them and going and meeting a new community. And that's the veteran ecosystem. That's the veteran community. So reaching out, going to events, not being scared. They're not going to chase you with a broom, like you mentioned, which it was in my head. You're going to go to events and you're not going to be able to relate. You're not going to be able to connect like you did when you were in uniform, which is not true. You're going to be, if you go out there, you put yourself out there, you're going to make those new friendships. You're going to grow that network. So I think that was the first thing that I realized, having put 50 plus events for veterans in South Florida and throughout the US. It was a constant thing that I heard veterans, whether it was female or males, I didn't want to get out of my couch. I didn't want to get out of my house, but thank you for putting this together, because it made me come out. And now I see that there's hope for me to pursue a college education or pursue this startup that was been nagging me in the back of my head. And so I think that's the biggest thing I can say is don't be afraid to reach out. Every veteran that you meet, they're going to address you as a brother, and you're going to feel that. And it's going to be super easy to connect and move on. Go
build that new tribe. That's exactly 100%. Yeah. You got to build the tribe. You got to build your network. It's brick by brick. It's not overnight. Yep. And it is the most valuable thing I think people can do in their transition. Tyler, want to ask you final question. Where can listeners learn more about the event and grab a ticket?
Yeah, you can go out to the website. So it's www.emergeamericas.com, and the programming's out there, registration's out there. There are dedicated tickets for the tracks, including the government and military side. So if you are active duty, first responder, or a veteran, you can get discounts on those tickets, and there's significant discounts. So I would encourage you to go out there. All of the programming is not detailed out there yet for the tracks since we're still building that up. But if you do have questions, certainly you can reach out to Carlos and I directly or through the info page. It'll come directly to us.
Excellent. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having
Brendan.
us.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it, man. I am looking forward to having you in Miami and the team. I'm super excited for you to be a part of this, and hopefully you can bring all that community that you've built up and MilVets has built up, and you guys are a part of this. Welcome, and let's do this thing.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'm really fired up about it. If you're listening to the show,
to have you over.
We're pumped. I'll see you guys in Miami. I'm sure I'll see you before then, but if not, we'll catch a coffee in Miami. Thank you so much for listening. If you're interested in learning more about the show, what we're going to do is link to the eMERGE America's website from our website as well. So you can go to the milvet.org/events. We'll throw up a link to the eMERGE America's site where you can learn more, buy a ticket. You can reach out to Tyler, Johnson, Carlos Romero on LinkedIn. They're pretty responsive. You can reach out to me and I'll put you in touch with them if you'd like to learn more about the event. Speaking of events, thank you all so much for listening to the podcast today. You know I'm going to plug a bunch of in-person events. We're recording this on the 17th of September. We've got a Dallas happy hour coming up on the 20th. This podcast will not be released in time, so sorry you guys missed it. I'm sure it was a ton of fun. We've got one in Austin, Texas, September 27th. We've got one in Philadelphia, October 30th. We've got one in New York, November 6th. We've got our 5th annual Veterans Day get-together in San Francisco on November 8th. So we'll be bi-coastal that week in SF and New York. We've got a holiday happy hour November 21st in Washington, D.C. We're going to be supporting some veteran-serving nonprofits in the area. The CEO of Navy Marine Corps Relief Society is going to join us at that event. Really fired up about it. So we'll see you in D.C. You can bring a gift for Toys for Tots. We're going to have a bunch of ways for folks to get involved with local nonprofits. We've, of course, got the Military Veterans Startup Conference. It's February 5th and 6th in San Francisco. And then we've got eMERGE America coming up, eMERGE Americas, coming up end of March. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you all back here next week. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the show today.